She's going to jump. You're going to jump. Come on. Jump up quickly so that we can start the video. There we go. That is Gracie, which you can just see her legs. Gracie May. She's Gracie because she is grey. I didn't name her, but she's cute. Look at that wonky tail. Anyway, thank you for the free cuteness, Gracie. She's also called Schmiddle because she's little. Wait a second. Okay, she's slightly more in frame. I'm slightly more out of frame, but that's totally fine. Two things that I want to tell you today. Number one is why you should watch the Kung Fu Panda films now as an adult. I've just watched the three. I think there's a fourth. I'm not 100% sure, but I've just watched the original three this past week. And as usual, I've gotten quite emotional about them. And I never really understood why I got emotional about animation. Don't get me wrong, I'm a huge animation fan. I love the wholesomeness of animation. But specifically the Kung Fu Panda films, number one, number two, and number three, are literally an introduction to Stoicism. Whether you want to look at it from like the Kung Fu Chi perspective, if you want to look at it from like, all's well in the world for kids that are like, just be yourself as perspective. There's a whole conversation when it comes to that and the left agenda sort of thing that has been coming out lately. I don't know if you guys know anything about that. Anyway, putting all of that aside and looking at it from the perspective of Stoicism, as in working on yourself to understand yourself better and to be a better human being and to just, do what you can to contribute to society. I'm not quoting the idea of Stoicism exactly correctly. If you don't know what it is, just let me know and I can make another video on that. But basically, the whole idea of Po, the panda, sort of coming into his own is a beautiful way that we can sort of look at for ourselves on how to be our own selves. And I don't mean that in a wishy-washy way. I mean that to fully step into your being, right? I have this concept that I call my muchness, right? Now, imagine the best, most fulfilling version of yourself, right? Sometimes I try to explain it like a balloon. When you blow a balloon, you don't blow a balloon like a little bit and try it and see if it's fine. Usually when we blow a balloon, we blow it up to its absolute maximum and then, we do whatever we want with it. And it's a very impressive balloon. And when we like let air out or like when we go to parties and you don't see a balloon at its biggest, you're like, oh, what a balloon. Your being is in that same way, right? Your muchness is you fulfilling as much of your potential as possible. So I call it your muchness, and it basically is creating your being as a noun. As an English teacher, ness is the suffix that creates nouns. Loneliness. I can't think of any other words with ness at the end now. If you can think of any, write them in the comments. But your ness. So my Aurelian-ness is my highest self, right? It's that version of myself who is successful and badass and has everything that she ever wants. But not only that, she fulfills not only her wants and her needs, but like how she contributes back to society and all the things. So I want you to imagine your ness, either from a perspective of like filling that balloon to the maximum potential of who you are, or just stepping into that highest self, that best version that you could possibly be. And that's what Po is, right? Po, throughout the films, at different stages of, obviously every film gives sort of like a lesson in a different way. Every film he steps into like the next stage of his highest self without really changing who he is as a person, because it's not about being more woke or being more zen or being more whatever. He still embodies exactly who he is. He doesn't change as a being, but he just like elevates, he like levels up in a way that I think is really beautiful. And in the final film, there's a quote by Master Shifu, I think he's a red panda. And it says, if you can only do what you can do, you will never be more than what you are now. And I think that is such a beautiful way for us to sort of step into that like next little bit of discomfort, whatever that may be. For me, it's learning more how to build a business, how to present myself online, how to, get back into exercising and fitness and healthy stuff. So everyone has their own stuff, right? But if you are only doing what you know how to do, you're never going to be more than that. And I think that's such a beautiful way to look at it. So a little bit of rambling on Kung Fu Panda. Now stay with me because I have something else that I'd like to share, and it's about the healing process. Now these two could be connected, but they're also not connected. So do with that what you will. I'm going to connect this to my shirt now because I need both hands. Okay, hopefully you can see me fine and that you can hear me fine as well, because I need both hands to use my whiteboard. I want to introduce you to the concept of spiral healing, right? Most people, when they think of growth, they think growth looks like that, right? And that within that, we see a lot of like infographics online that like do this. That's fine. I agree that some people view healing like this. But what happens when it's a problem that comes up again and again? I need to clean this. Hold on. I just used my t-shirt. It's too lazy to find something. So instead of looking at healing or growth, looking more linearly, right, as in a line, I want you to imagine healing and growth more as a spiral, right? So sometimes you've seen this online, maybe you have, maybe you haven't. But growth happens in patterns and it happens in circles. However, everybody has their own shit to deal with. And what does that mean? It means that sometimes in our human condition, in our childhood or something that's happened in our lives, something happens and we hit like a wall, right? And in that hitting of the wall, you have to deal with something in order to like be the better version of you, or deal with your bullshit, or heal whatever that is unhealed in whoever you are, whatever the case is. And then usually we get past it and we continue the cycle of healing and growth and being the best version of ourselves until we hit that same fucking wall again, excuse my language. Why does that happen? So everybody has something that they need to deal with. I have an issue with resentment, and sometimes it's got to do with resentment of my family. I also have to deal with shame, which is also connected to a deep, very deep part of me. And I hit the same wall over and over again. It doesn't mean that you are going backwards. It means that you are dealing with the same thing over and over again because you need to deal with it from a different perspective, with a version of yourself that has never dealt with it before, because who you were 5 years ago is not who you are now. So when you hit that same wall, even though you might not realize it's the same thing, because usually other things, like everybody deals with certain things in a different way, and even though it could be an obstacle, it doesn't really like hinder, technically growth, right? It's just that same thing that you hit over and over again. But even looking at hitting the same problem, whether it's shame or resentment or envy or let's say like for example a substance abuse problem, just to give you like a context. Every version that you hit that same wall, you are still growing in the pattern of upward growth, right? So when you are dealing with a problem, right, I try and keep in mind for this myself and be like, oh yeah, I'm experiencing these feelings of resentment again. Okay, what does that mean? How do I deal with it? What do I need to acknowledge? Do I just need to experience those feelings and let them go? What do I need to do? Sometimes there's nothing that you can do. Sometimes the only thing that you can do is sit in it, acknowledge it, feel those shitty feelings, because also healing is not about like, oh, just let it go and just move on with life. Sometimes you just need to feel those feelings and be in that shitty space before, letting it like sort of ease on past. So I don't know if I'm explaining myself very well. I hope that you enjoy my concept, because for me it really helps. It also helps because I was having a conversation with a family member, and she has her own stuff that she's dealing with, and she's like, I thought I had dealt with this before. Yes, you did, in a version of you that was dealing with that version of that problem 2 years ago, for example. And coming back to it, and you realize there's another layer, like an onion, and that now this version of you that's wiser, older, has more tools, has more resources, needs to come at it from a different perspective. Because at the end of the day, it's not really the problems that everybody faces. It's going to be one or two problems that just manifest in different ways. Anyway, that's my video for today. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if you guys have any questions, or if I did this video way too off the cuff. I didn't plan it. So if I need more planning, just let me know and I'll try and do better next time. Okay. Bye.